Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of Cornerstone Quick Tips. My name is Josh Donnelly, and in today's episode, we are going to take a look at how to unlock the power of gradients natively within Cornerstone. So without further ado, let's dive in. So here we are in the Cornerstone Builder, and as you'll see, we have ourselves here a pretty standard homepage, and we want to begin sprinkling some gradient designs into this to bring the page to life. Now, this is not a design tutorial. We're going to go a little bit extreme here just for the sake of example, but in our hero section here, let's go ahead and select that. You'll notice on the left-hand side here, we currently have our background set to white. Now, what you're going to notice is that our color picker, for the most part here, is pretty standard, and it should be what you're already used to, but we now have this new toggle here for solid and gradient. By default, you're going to see your solids here, which means everything works exactly the same as it has in the past. But now we can unlock the world of gradients directly inside of Cornerstone. Let's go ahead and click on the Gradient Builder. So let's get familiar with what we're looking at here. On the left-hand side, you'll notice that we now have our gradient preview, and on the right side, we have our color picker. So let's start with building out our gradient, and then we'll go ahead and pick some colors. So on the left side here, you'll notice that I can choose the type of gradient that I want to build. When we have all of the common options, like a linear gradient, a radial gradient, a conic gradient, and then we have repeating linear, repeating radial, and repeating conic. Now, what are these? Well, a linear gradient is exactly what we see here, which is simply going in a linear fashion from start to finish. And this could be top to bottom, left to right, angled, what have you, but it is linear. A radial is a circle that expands outward from the center, creating like a spotlight effect. And so you'll see what that preview looks like here. And then we'd be able to pick colors and design this out as we see fit. Or we can go with a conic gradient, and this is a circle around a point. So you can actually see there's a point in the center here, and our gradient goes around that point, almost like a color wheel. But for the sake of this example, let's go ahead and go with the most common of these, which is the linear gradient. Now, with the linear gradient selected, you'll notice that we're going from red to blue. So left, red, to blue on the right. But right below our gradient type selector, we have our gradient angle selector. Currently, this is set to the right. So from red to blue, left to right. But if I click on this, I could go to the bottom. So it'll be red up top and blue on the bottom. I can also set this to an angle. So I could set this to the bottom right. And so now it's going to be red in the upper left-hand corner to blue in the bottom right-hand corner. And if you want to get even more specific than that, we can come in here and we can add a custom angle, and you could add something like 27 degrees, and that's going to set itself precisely to that 27-degree point. If we change this to 50 degrees, you'll notice that it now changes to 50 degrees. So already you'll see that you have control over the gradient type and the gradient angle, but we can also control the gradient position, which is how our gradient is fading from one color to another. So let's go down here to where we have our from and to, and by default, these are going to be set to auto, which works nicely for 90% of cases out there. But if you want to be very specific in how your gradient is moving from one color to another, you can begin to adjust these. And this control really comes to life when you begin to add even more colors into the mix. So let's go ahead and do that really quick here. How would we add more than our two colors? Currently, we have red and we have blue. Well, we can simply click this plus sign here, and now we have added green, and we could make this, let's go with an orange here. And then maybe we want to add one more in here. Now we have a green color added in there as well. So now what we have going on here is we have color 1, which is our red. We have color 2, which is our blue. We have color 3, which is our orange color here. And then we have color 4, which is our green. Now already I think this looks pretty good from a flow standpoint in our design here, but let's say we want to control this a little more. Maybe we want the prominent color here to be the red, and then it sort of flows into all the others. We could say that we want the red to go from auto, I think that works, or you could say from 0 to, what do we want it to go to? Maybe 50%. We want red to be, again, the prominent color here. So we're going to say red is 50%. And you'll notice that now takes up 50% of our background color there. Now we could come into the blue and say we actually want this blue to go from auto to 80%. So now you'll notice that our blue is going to 80%. Now, if we wanted to create a hard line in there, we know that our red goes to 50%, so we could take our from starting point on the blue and set that to 50% as well, which now creates a hard line between our red and our blue, but then after the blue, the gradient continues on here. And you can see that both in the background and in the gradient preview here in our color picker. Now, this is a gradient, so that's not really what I'm looking to do. So we'll go ahead and just set that from to auto. And now I think this is coming together nicely. Now we could jump into our orange color here, and we could just leave these set to auto, but maybe I want this to be 90. And then I want green to be 100. So green is just very small at the end there. And you'll notice we've created a nice, albeit crazy gradient here, which has a prominent red color and then slowly transitions to blue and then into our tertiary accent colors beyond that point. So I think this is looking good. Now, what you'll notice is we had quite a few customizations here. We might have customized the gradient type. We definitely customized the degrees. We customized the number of colors and the color transition points from and to. So there's a lot going on here. So if we wanted to reuse this color, this becomes quite cumbersome. Well, just like with all of our other colors that can be added to our global color palette, we can do the same thing here. And an easy way to get this into your global colors, if you haven't already built it there, is to simply come down here to where we have copy and paste. We're going to go ahead and copy what we've just been working on. Go ahead and close out our color picker, and then we'll jump up to our globals, go into colors. Let's go ahead and just add a new color, and we'll open up color 22 here. We'll call this our primary gradient, and we'll even change the ID to primary gradient. And you can either build a gradient right here, or since we already did the work, we can simply paste this in, and now we have a global gradient set. So let's go ahead and save the page here. That saves our globals as well. And now let's come down to something like this section. We'll go ahead and click on the background here and change our background from a standard solid color here to our global gradient. And there we have it. And you'll notice this doesn't give us all of the gradient controls because this is pulling from the global gradient. So if we wanted to edit what this gradient looked like here, we could now do this from the globals and it would change everywhere on our site. First things first, we want this hero section to now be pulling from the globals. So we're going to click on this. We're going to go into our background and make sure that this is assigned to the globals as well. We'll get a warning message that this is going to override our current gradient, and we're going to go ahead and say, yes, proceed. Now, it doesn't look like a whole lot changed there, but now you'll notice that this is tied to our global gradient. So when we jump back over to our globals here, just like with any global color, we come into our gradient and we decide to make some changes. Let's say we just get rid of 2 colors, and just for the sake of creating something nice and smooth here, let's go ahead and set this to auto, and then we'll set this one to auto as well. And I think that's looking pretty good. Now we're going to go ahead and save our globals, and we're going to reload our preview, and you'll notice our hero section has now updated automatically, and when we scroll down to this section, it has updated automatically as well. Now, let's say we wanted to start with something global, but then turn it into an instance-based design. Well, we could do that pretty simply here. We could pick one of these backgrounds that we've set to the gradient here. Let's go ahead and select this here. We're going to jump into our background color. And as you can see, just like in the previous example, we are using our global primary gradient, so we don't have our controls. But if we want to edit this gradient a little bit, we're not editing the global here. We're going to go ahead and click on this edit icon. Now we are editing this one instance of the gradient. So I could come in here and I could change this color to green. And so now our hero section goes from blue to green, but all of our other sections that are still tied to the global color are going to pull from whatever that global color is. Now, finally, gradients can be applied to all sorts of things on your page. So I'm going to go ahead and set our background here back to a solid, and we'll go ahead and make this a solid white. But I want to apply that gradient that we just created to our text. So I'm going to come in here on our headline. I'm going to select that. I'm going to scroll down to our primary color for this headline, and then scroll down to our gradient that we created here and apply that to our text. And you'll see it works nicely there. We can even create hover states. Maybe it's for a button or maybe it's for text. If I go ahead and click on the text here and I click on our color and I click on interaction, and let's start with our primary gradient, but then we're going to edit the interaction color, and this one will give it that green here at the end. Now, when I hover on this headline, it goes from our primary gradient to that interaction gradient. And then finally, we're going to take a look at an example that is a little more commonplace, which is utilizing a gradient as an overlay. So it's a little more subtle. So let's go ahead and click on our hero section here, and we are going to add a background image. So we'll click on Advanced. We'll make sure that we have background image selected in our lower layer, and we'll go ahead and add an image in there. Let's just make it something, let's maybe go with this lighthouse here. We'll add that in. Now you'll notice our text is a little bit harder to read there, and it's competing with all the stuff going on in the background. Maybe we get rid of this image here, and then we set this back over to the left side. There we go. So we have this hero text, but it's competing a lot with this image in the background. Now, traditionally, you might have just come in here, set a color, and maybe made this a dark, a black with 50% transparency. And that kind of works here. Maybe we want lighter, actually, so it's more of a white. That kind of works as well, but maybe we want more of the image to be seen. This is a great example for gradient overlays. So we're going to come into this upper layer, select our gradient, and let's go ahead and just start with white and white, right? Now, the second one here, let's go ahead and make sure we have that selected. We have it going to the right. So this is our second point over here. And we're going to go ahead and set the transparency down to 0. So now if I go ahead and close this out, it starts with white over here and transitions to 0 over here. But maybe I want this to cover just a little bit more of this text here. So I'd go to our first point here, and I'd say I want this to go to, I don't know, let's pick 50%. That might be a little bit too much. Yeah, we can't see our lighthouse anymore. So let's go with 30%. And there we have it. Now our text is nice and readable, no longer competing with the background, but we can still see that background here, and then it even transitions to 0 over here. And again, using what we've looked at in today's video, you could get more sophisticated with how you set up this gradient overlay as well. And just like that, you can level up your designs with a native gradient builder directly inside of Cornerstone. As always, I look forward to seeing what you guys create, and I will see you guys in the next video. Happy building!